The movie starts with introducing a young woman named Lydia. One morning, Lydia purchases firearms and ammunition at a firearms store for her partner Jonah. Jonah belongs to a criminal gang led by a man named El Padrino. After obtaining the weapons, Lydia, Jonah, and two other gang members visit the residence of someone suspected of stealing money from El Padrino. The house is occupied by a husband, a wife, and 3 sons. Gunshots erupt from inside shortly after the arrival of Jonah, Lydia, and their companions. Lydia, who is unaccustomed to her boyfriend's violent behavior, appears surprised by the sound of breaking glass as Jonah shoots his gun. Meanwhile, 3 boys playing in the garden nearby rush to seek refuge inside the house. Lydia witnesses Jonah shooting a man and interrogating the wife about the stolen money. The frightened wife maintains her innocence, claiming ignorance about the stolen money, while 2 other gang members search the premises for it. Unhappy with the situation, Lydia pleads with Jonah not to harm the woman. Ignoring Lydia's pleas, Jonah instructs Lydia to use the gun she has to prove her loyalty by shooting the woman. However, Lydia is too frightened and unable to comply, despite Jonah's insistence. She hesitates and, in a panic, accidentally shoots Jonah in the chest. Realizing her mistake, Lydia flees the scene to save herself. The scene shifts to an older man named John Link, who is Lydia's father. On that day, John shared a story at a support group about his time serving as a soldier in the U.S. military. He then recounted spending 7 years in prison for unintentionally killing someone while intoxicated. John attended the group with his close friend Kirby, whom he has known since their military days, and they share a bond akin to family. It is revealed that John has been divorced from his wife for some time and now resides alone in an old camper van. After leaving the military, J.N. transitions into a career as a tattoo artist, finding his life quite solitary as he rarely sees his daughter. Soon after, John receives a call from Lydia, who confesses she's leaving her home. Lydia explains she urgently needs $2,000 to secure a place to stay and find employment. In reality, Lydia is seeking the money to escape from Jonah's associates, but she can't disclose the truth to keep John safe. Deeply concerned for his daughter, John agrees to provide Lydia with the money and promises to deliver it as soon as possible, even though he doesn't have it at that moment. Determined to assist his daughter in trouble, John agrees to meet Lydia at a bar in Santa Monica, California, and pick her up after the call ends. Immediately, J.N. sets out in his car to the location Lydia mentioned. After a lengthy journey, John finally reaches his destination the following day. Shortly after, Lydia, looking anxious and scared, approaches John and enters the car. Exhausted from evading Jonah's associates, Lydia quickly falls asleep during the ride back to John's place. Upon arrival, John gently carries Lydia to her bed. He then disposes of all the alcohol and drugs, ensuring to safely store the gun he discovered in Lydia's bag. John realizes that his daughter has become entangled in a perilous lifestyle, which deeply troubles him. When Lydia awakens, she promptly inquires about the money she had requested earlier. However, John is unable to provide it as he lacks the necessary funds. Lydia felt enraged by her father's deception, despite John's attempts to soothe her. He proposed she stay with him temporarily until she could secure a job. Lydia hesitated, fearing she might endanger her father by staying too long. She disclosed that her boyfriend was deceased, but she didn't confess to being responsible for his death. At this point, John realized Lydia was wanted by the police, evident from the numerous flyers around. He suggested she stay for a week until he could gather the necessary funds. Later that afternoon, John asked Kirby for a loan, but Kirby declined, suspecting Lydia would use it for drugs. Instead, Kirby advised John to seek psychiatric or medical assistance for Lydia, believing she might be under the influence. In the evening, several men arrived at John's place, ostensibly for tattoos. Recognizing the group as a threat to his daughter, John quickly secured the area to protect Lydia. A confrontation ensued, during which John defended himself and Lydia. The situation escalated when one attacker targeted John's camper van, smashing its windows while John and Lydia were trapped inside. Fortunately, Kirby and his friends arrived just in time, causing the attackers to flee due to their superior numbers. Realizing his daughter was in imminent danger, John promptly removed Lydia from the scene. That night, they drove out of town in search of safety. During the journey, Lydia finally confessed to John about the incident involving Jonah. She admitted to accidentally shooting him while attempting to recover stolen money belonging to El Padrino, resulting in Jonah's demise. Now, both Jonah's associates and the police were on the hunt for her. Later that night, John and Lydia continued their journey and found shelter at a motel to rest. Unable to sleep, Lydia went outside for some fresh air and struck up a conversation with the young man at the reception desk. Suddenly, news of Lydia being wanted by the police flashed on the television screen, abruptly ending their chat. The motel promptly contacted the local authorities, revealing Lydia's whereabouts. Realizing they were exposed, Lydia urged John to swiftly gather their belongings and leave. However, several police officers were already outside the motel, blocking their exit. Fortunately, the young man from the lobby intervened, guiding Lydia and John to a hiding spot. While concealed in an empty room, JN cautiously peered out the window to assess the situation. Two policemen were approaching, nearly discovering them, when a gunshot sounded from another direction, incapacitating the officers. Armed with the address, JN and Lydia hurried to Tom's place, catching a ride with a stranger. Upon arrival, JN demanded the money and his Harley motorcycle that Tom had borrowed years ago. Unfortunately, Tom regretfully informed them that the money was no longer available. That evening, Tom invited some members of his motorcycle club to his house to meet John. After the gathering, JN and Lydia opted to spend the night at Tom's place. The next morning, Tom and his wife threatened JN and Lydia with guns, compelling them to remain. It became apparent that Tom and his wife were aware of John and Lydia's status as wanted individuals and planned to turn them in to claim a $30,000 reward. Enraged by the betrayal, John disarmed Tom's wife by striking her and then aimed the gun at Tom, demanding his money and Harley motorcycle back. Despite his anger, John opted not to kill Tom, valuing their previous friendship. After reclaiming his money and Harley from Tom's house, John and Lydia departed immediately. During their journey, they were pursued by several men sent by Tom to apprehend them. A fierce shootout ensued between John and Tom's henchmen, but John managed to overcome them using a weapon he had obtained earlier from Tom. The following day, John and Lydia decided to alter their appearances to avoid detection. John shaved his beard and mustache, while Lydia dyed her hair a different color. Later, John visited the prison to meet Jack and gather information about the Mafia pursuing Lydia. Through Jack's connections, they discovered that Lydia's pursuers were John's former associates and allies of El Padrino. Shockingly, it was revealed that Jana was the true culprit who had stolen El Padrino's money. At the start of the film, Jonah orchestrated the incident, framing others and plotting to eliminate them to divert suspicion from himself. However, Lydia accidentally shot Jonah while he was in the act of attacking someone, leading El Padrino to believe Lydia was the culprit behind the theft. Meanwhile, Lydia, still in hiding at a motel, received a call from Kirby, who warned her that El Padrino's men had discovered her location. Kirby urged Lydia to relocate to a busier area immediately. Acting swiftly, Lydia sought refuge in a movie theater, believing she would be safe from suspicion. However, it turned out to be a trap set by Jonah, who was revealed to be alive and seeking revenge on Lydia. Realizing the danger, Lydia attempted to flee, but she was apprehended by Jonah's men. Meanwhile, John, having just returned from meeting Jack in prison, tried to contact Lydia but received no response. Worried, he asked Kirby about Lydia's whereabouts, only to discover that Jonah had captured and killed Kirby. Filled with rage after losing his closest friend and with his daughter kidnapped, John confronted Jonah. Jonah threatened to kill Lydia to conceal his actions from El Padrino, but John warned him that he would expose Jonah's schemes to El Padrino if he harmed Lydia. Before facing Jonah, John went to Tom's place to acquire grenades to use against Jonah and his gang. In a desperate struggle, John was compelled to kill Tom, who obstructed his path. Upon arriving at the meeting point, John raised his hand to indicate he was unarmed. Jonah permitted him to see Lydia, who was held captive in his car. Planning to eliminate them both, Jonah's men were on the verge of removing John's Harley motorcycle, blocking their way. However, they were thrown aside by a grenade explosion planted by John and his bike. Seizing his opportunity, John battled Jonah and his men inside the car. After a fierce confrontation, John emerged victorious, freeing Lydia from her restraints. Despite surviving, Jonah fled, while John and Lydia managed to escape in Jonah's abandoned car. However, they encountered another attack from the hills, and a shot from El Padrino's hired sniper struck John, causing him to collapse. With no means of escape, John made the ultimate sacrifice to protect his beloved daughter. In his final moments, John gazed at his daughter's face one last time before succumbing to his injuries in Lydia's embrace. Shortly after, the police arrived and arrested Jonah. The movie concludes with a scene of Jonah in prison, where he is confronted by Jack and his allies, hinting at the challenges he will confront behind bars. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.